Welcome to today's Pet Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Roberta Westbrook. We appreciate you joining us every week to get more information about your pets and how to help them have a long, happy, safe life. So today we are going to answer some questions that you might have about just mealtime safety for your pet. There are certainly some nutritional and dietary issues that can occur around your dog or your cat. We want to make sure that we can help you get some answers to your questions about nutrition and mealtime safety. So if you have any questions, please post those in the chat and hopefully we can help you today. In the meantime, I want to invite you all to come on down to our adoption center, take a look at all of our adoptable dogs, cats, puppies, kittens, rabbits, guinea pigs, mice, and everything that we've got. Every animal deserves a home. And I want to introduce you to a wonderful dog that we have available for adoption. Our pet of the week this week is Ryder. Ryder is a 2-year-old German short-haired pointer mix. Ryder is neutered. He is very energetic. He's a very good dog. He knows some tricks. He knows how to fetch. He knows how to sit. He's good on a leash. He's going to make a wonderful pet for someone. So if you've got an active lifestyle, family, even children, Ryder might be a great addition to your family. So come on down and visit with him. Really adorable dog. So again, we invite you to come on down. We are open every day from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's no appointment necessary. You can just come on down and visit with the pets that we have available for adoption. So let's get started. We're going to start talking about mealtime safety. So we'll just jump right in and see what questions you have, and I'll help you.
All right. So number one is, why isn't it a good idea for dogs to eat too quickly?
Yes, this is a great question. So, if you guys have dogs and you feed your dogs, and if you're anything like me, sometimes I will put the food in my dog's bowl, and before I can even get the bag sealed and put away, the food is gone. And I'm wondering, how did she finish that so fast? Dogs can scarf down their food very, very quickly, and it can cause some concern. You're wondering, man, did they even chew the food? Are they going to be able to digest the food? And so we do recommend that you try to slow down your dog's feeding. If you know that your dog is one that scarfs down the food and doesn't even chew it well, we're going to give you some tips for how to slow your dog's feeding down. So there's a couple things that you can do, and we can make this fun for your pet as well. So the easiest thing to do is to purchase what we call a slow feeder or a food puzzle type bowl. This is a nice bowl that you can put kibble in, and the kibble will sit deep in these little wells, and it forces your dog to slow down a little bit to work to get the kibble out of the little wells there. So it can be enrichment for them. It can be mentally stimulating, but also it's providing their nutrition, and it's helping to keep them safe. There's one that looks like this. Then there are other bowls that have, a side for water, and then these little wells that you can put kibble in as well. And if you don't want to purchase a bowl, but you have something like a muffin pan at home that you put cupcakes in or muffins in, you can use that the same way as that you can use this bowl. You can use a muffin pan. You can put those kibbles in the little wells, and it'll help slow your pet down. And then other options that you can mix it up with. We've shown these to you guys before in the past. These are food puzzles where you can put the little kibble in these little wells here, and your dog has to use his or her nose to move those around and work to get the kibble out. Again, mental enrichment, stimulating, it's fun, and they can get their nutrition this way.
And then, so is it possible for dogs, if they don't use that, to not digest their food properly? They're just scarfing it down?
Sometimes that can happen. Dogs will sometimes scarf their food down, and they may not have any trouble with it, but it is risky. Sometimes when they eat too fast, it can cause GI upset. And so if you've ever noticed that your dog eats fast and then a few minutes later they vomit or they throw the food back up, that could be one of the reasons, that they just scarf down too much of the food too fast. It doesn't sit well in their tummy, and it causes them to vomit. When they're scarfing down that food really fast as well, sometimes they're inhaling a lot of air, and that can upset the stomach as well, and lead to other more serious health conditions. So again, you can slow it down. Now, if you want to be really good about slowing your dog down and you want to create some bonding time with your pet, you can hand feed your pet. Combine hand feeding your pet kibble with a training exercise. So maybe you're teaching your dog how to sit, how to stay, how to roll over, how to come. You can match up mealtime with those training sessions, and then you're hand feeding your dog. And again, you're getting mental stimulation, enrichment, learning, and nutrition all at the same time. And then finally, I have another kind of trick. If you don't want to purchase a food bowl or you don't have a muffin tin, you could have a regular size food bowl like this, and you can put a toy like a tennis ball or other toy in the center of the bowl, and you can put the kibble around it. It works the same way. Your pet's going to have to work around that toy or that tennis ball to get to the kibble.
And we've heard of the term bloat before. What is that, and how does it correlate to the pet's eating?
Yes, if you've heard of the medical condition called bloat, in veterinary terms, we call this GDV, or gastric dilatation and volvulus. Really fancy term. What that means is when your dog is eating food and they're scarfing down the food, what can happen, particularly if they're eating the food really fast and they've inhaled a lot of air, or they have eaten food and then exercised right afterwards. Anything that can maybe cause their stomach to be full of air. Imagine that the stomach starts to enlarge like a balloon. It's full of air, but it's also got food in it. What can happen is, as that stomach gets full of air and your pet is exercising, or sometimes they don't have to be exercising, they could just be relaxing, but as the stomach gets full of air, it gets a little buoyant, and so it can flip on itself. And so the stomach twists inside the abdomen, and what that does is it unfortunately will cut off circulation to other organs in the abdomen, and it can cut off blood flow from the bottom half of the body to the heart. This is a very serious, life-threatening condition. When the stomach twists on itself, it causes serious lack of blood supply back to the heart and to other critical organs in the body. So if you're noticing, this is what you need to be aware of. There's a couple of things you need to be aware of. One, you already have a dog that eats really fast, maybe tends to suck down a lot of air. That is a risk factor. Another risk factor to bloat, or GDV, is your pet that has eaten a large meal and then exercised. Maybe they went on a walk. Maybe you let them out in the backyard and they started chasing squirrels or playing with the kids. That's another risk factor. There's also risk factors associated with breed. Some breeds of dogs are predisposed to this condition called bloat. It's typically large breed dogs that are deep chested. We're talking about Great Danes, Dobermans, sometimes even Labradors, Golden Retrievers. These breeds of dogs can happen. We actually have a wonderful Great Dane here in our hospital with us right now, and her name is Jaden. Jaden is one of our patients who's being treated for an injury on her tail. Jaden is a wonderful, wonderful dog, and she's going to make someone a wonderful pet once her wound on her tail heals up. She's going to be made available for adoption. But Jaden is an example of a large, deep-chested dog that would be a breed that's predisposed to gastric dilatation and volvulus, otherwise known as bloat. And so she would be a dog that we want to make sure that she eats very slowly, that she doesn't exercise after she eats, so that we can reduce her chances of this condition.
And so how can it be prevented? Just from the slow feeding, or just other little things to watch out for?
Yes, slow feeding is going to be the best way to prevent that, and then making sure that your pet does not exercise after eating, and then just being aware of your pet's behavior after mealtime. So you might recognize bloat in your dog if after mealtime you notice that the stomach is becoming enlarged, looking a little bit bigger. You might notice that your dog is starting to gag. Sometimes when they have bloat, they start to dry heave. They start to gag a little bit as if they want to vomit, but nothing comes up. They may seem restless, like they're uncomfortable and unable to relax in the home. And they may be lethargic, sort of not wanting to get up, not interact, panting, seeming painful. These could be some signs that you can look out for after mealtime if your dog is developing bloat.
And is there issues for drinking too much water too?
Yeah, so drinking a lot of water could create issues too. It doesn't typically lead to bloat, but certainly when animals are drinking water really quickly, that can cause vomit as well. So they're drinking really quickly, they're trying to inhale the water, so they're trying to breathe and drink water at the same time, so their stomachs can get really full. And I've seen that cause vomiting in some dogs as well when they're just drinking too quickly. And sometimes that's a little bit more difficult to control because you're not able to really slow down the drinking of the water unless you just fill the water bowl a little bit at a time, let them drink a little bit at a time, refill it a little bit at a time instead of drinking the whole bowl at once.
So should we be keeping track of how much water they drink a day, and maybe that can lead to other health issues?
So yeah, how much water is normal? You know, that's a hard thing. Your veterinarian can kind of help you determine that. We do have a calculation that we can do for how much water is normal for a particular dog. It is based on weight, but it's not exact. It's a wide range, and it's a mathematical calculation, but it's a wide range, and it can vary based on the breed and the size of the dog and their activity level. But your veterinarian can certainly help you. Now, what you can do at home is, it's more important that you understand your pet's norm. What is normal for your dog? If you notice that your dog is increasing in the amount of water, for example, you're having to refill the water bowl more frequently than you used to, or the water bowl is becoming bone dry because your dog is trying to get every drop of water out of the bowl. These might be clues that there's a change in the norm, and that might be a hint that you should go to the veterinarian and make sure that there's nothing different that's changing your pet's health. In addition, when your pet starts to drink too much water, oftentimes you will notice it because they'll need to urinate more. So when they urinate more, they may have more accidents in the house, or you might notice that they're asking to go out more frequently. These could be signs that, one, your pet's intake of water has increased, and two, it's increased to a point that it's changing their urination habits. I would see a veterinarian just to make sure everything's okay.
And how often should we be washing our bowls?
Yeah, so when you wash the bowls, really you should be washing the bowls like you wash your dishes at least daily. You know, even if you're feeding dry food, it's kind of intuitive to think that if you're feeding canned food, that the canned food kind of gets dried on the inside of the bowl, and you're going to want to wash that out. But it's true that even if you're feeding dry food and kibble, that there's little tiny like dust-sized particles from that dry food that can sit on the inside of the food bowl. And when you don't clean it, it sits there. It can also grow bacteria and mold. It can even attract ants and things like that in your house. So you want to make sure that you rinse these water bowls out and wash them with soap at least once a day to keep down the bacterial levels.
And speaking of the different bowls, is there a myth that like metal is better than plastic, or there's another type of bowl that kind of frails almost?
Yeah, like ceramic. You could use ceramic type bowls. That's another type. But yes, there's pros and cons to all of them. So, plastic bowls tend to be the most inexpensive and easily accessible. One of the things that can be a problem with plastic bowls is they tend to crack over time, and they can get bacteria that builds up in those cracks. And also a little bit more difficult to clean. So, the chemicals also in plastic, the material can also sometimes cause reactions to pets that are eating out of plastic food bowls. Sometimes they actually get an allergy to it. And around the mouth and the chin, they can get an allergy to the plastic food bowl. So that's possible, but still perfectly fine for many pets and not a problem to use if this is what you're using and there's no problem. Stainless steel food bowls have an advantage because they don't crack. They're a little bit more durable, somewhat easier to clean. But some pets get a little bit nervous with the sound that makes, particularly if they have like a tag on. They have a collar and a tag, and every time they go to eat or drink water, that metal tag hits the stainless steel. Some pets don't like that, and so it's just something to think about. If your pet doesn't mind, then stainless steel food bowls might be the way to go.
And then some bowls are, in a raised position. Is there a benefit to that? When should we opt for those type of bowls?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So if you've noticed, when your dog's on all fours and the food bowl is on the ground, your pet's neck is quite low to have to ingest the food. And it's a little bit of an abnormal position. And so having that food bowl a little bit more elevated so that their neck is a little bit in more of a natural position as they're eating could be a benefit, if for no other reason to prevent sort of muscle fatigue of the neck being held down. And if you have a large dog, a taller dog, having them bend their neck all the way down like a Great Dane or a German Shepherd, certainly that could create some muscle fatigue over time. And as they get older, especially, you might notice that older dogs are not going to want to bend down for a long period of time. Sometimes they even start eating while they're laying down because it's just a little bit easier. So a raised food bowl might be a good idea. There are some medical conditions that actually require a raised food bowl. So there's a medical condition called megaesophagus, where animals are born, dogs particularly, are born with or develop sort of a pouching of their esophagus here. And when they eat food, it sits in a little pouch in their neck in the esophagus, and it doesn't make it all the way down to the stomach. And in those patients, we actually recommend feeding them almost standing up, so that we can use the force of gravity to help food get from the esophagus down into the gastrointestinal tract. So if your pet has ever been diagnosed with megaesophagus, or you've heard of that condition or know someone with that condition, and they're feeding their dog almost standing up, that's why we're trying to use gravity to help get that food from the upper end of the esophagus down into their stomach.
Another funny question, just like, us, dogs sometimes pass gas, or dogs are sometimes louder than ours. Is it normal? I know some breeds are a little bit gassier than others, or every dog is different.
Yes, every dog is different. And usually, just like in people, it has to do with how well they're digesting the diet they just ate. So sometimes it could be a new treat that you got, or a new diet that you just started feeding, and their gastrointestinal tract is not used to digesting particular substances in there. For example, things that tend to make pets gassy, or some of the things that tend to make people gassy as well, beans and milk products and high fat foods and spicy foods. If your pet is eating those sorts of products, you might notice that they're having an increase in gas production or flatulence, and you may want to consider trying a different diet, or giving less of that particular treat, or whatever it is that's new that you're seeing the change in. But if that's chronic, if that's happening all the time, contact your veterinarian, because it could mean that you need an actual diet change, or it could mean that your pet has a digestive problem. So if you're noticing it chronically and you're having trouble living with your pet because, you're always like, hey, you're smelling over there, then I would say contact your veterinarian and see how you can make that relationship better.
Yeah, we always find our bigger lab has the smelliest ones.
Yes.
Speaking of like behavior around food, if a dog is territorial around food, may see it in the past when they were rescued. What are some tips to ensure safety around family, around other dogs, or around kids?
Yeah, it's a great question. So how do you keep people safe if you have a pet that maybe shows some territorial aggression or food aggression, or they want to protect their mealtime? And certainly we see that in dogs naturally, because in the wild they tend to have to compete for meals, and so it's not uncommon for them to sort of be protective of their food source, and want to eat it really fast because there's some competition around. So it's a good idea just to teach everyone in the family to leave your pet alone during mealtime. There's no real reason that you should be involved with them or doing anything with them during mealtime. Let them have their meal, and then just steer clear of them. If you have other pets and more than one, or one of those pets is food aggressive, then I would consider feeding them in different areas so that they don't sense that there's any competition. Feed them in a different room so that they're not seeing each other. It will prevent them from having to eat really fast because of competition, and hopefully prevent any fights. So I would say feed them separately if you're noticing that you're having a pet that is experiencing some food aggression. You can also get help from your veterinarian or veterinary behaviorist on how to rid them of that behavior, because again, we want them to be safe, and we don't want our dogs to feel threatened every time they have mealtime. So there's things that we can do to kind of get them out of that practice of food aggression. There's training available, so contact your veterinarian for assistance.
Something else dogs tend to do is kind of eat out. They take a little kibble and they move it from their bowl. Is that normal? Any background from that?
There's lots of theories to that, and I have a dog that does that too. I give her some treats, she wants to take it and go eat it in her bed, and then she'll come back and she'll get another one and go eat it in her bed. And some of that is just preference, right? They just want to eat in a nice, comfortable area and take their time. Sometimes it is the type of bowl, so there are some animals that might not again, like the sound or the look of the bowl. It's kind of intimidating. And so they may take their kibble out of the bowl and put it in a more comfortable area. Some animals may do it because they're trying to stash away food and hide food, or they're doing it because of competition, because of other dogs in the home. Lots of theories, lots of possibilities. I wish we could talk to them and tell them why they like to do that. But, as long as it's not causing them any harm and everybody is safe, it's just some cute little thing that we like to see in our pets sometimes.
Somebody has heard of the term affectionate eaters with cats. Is that a real thing?
Yeah, I do think that's a real thing. So I've noticed, many of you have noticed that some cats eat better when they are around people or with other cats. Even as a veterinarian, when we have pets, cats particularly that are in the hospital and they don't want to eat, sometimes we notice that they will eat if we pet them. We pet them, we sit next to them, we give them a little bit of love, and it makes them want to eat. And so that is a real thing. And so if you have a cat that likes to be a social eater, who doesn't like to go out for margaritas and enchiladas and queso? I love to socially eat, and sometimes our cats love to socially eat, and that's quite all right. And so if you have a cat like that, then you may want to consider getting another cat or creating your cat's mealtime around your family mealtime so that you're all eating together, whatever's going to make the family happiest.
And then I've heard that if you just adopted a new pet, you can hand feed them to increase bonding. Is there any relations between that?
Yeah, so if you adopted a new pet and you're noticing that they're not eating, there's a couple tips and tricks that you can do. So one, you can use a food that is really enticing to them. So add a little bit of canned food, or sometimes maybe even chicken broth to their food to try to encourage them to eat. Hand feeding can help so that they trust you. They're seeing you as a resource, as a friend. The thing to be careful about is you don't want to get yourself in a position where that's the only way that your new pet will eat. So it's a good thing to try, but try not to get into the habit of doing it all the time so that your pet will not eat unless you're hand feeding, because then that could put you both in a little bit of a predicament. But certainly it's okay to do that in the early stages just to see if it's going to be a medical problem or just sort of a behavior issue. If they'll eat from your hand, at least we know that it's not likely a medical problem, and it could just be that they're a little bit unsure, a little bit nervous, and we can work through that.
Yeah, my husband just says I spoil them.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then is there a specific place to store the food, like a safe area, or should we keep it in its original bag?
Yeah, storing the food. So you just want to make sure that when you're storing food that it's a nice, tight, sealed container. So you can keep the food in the original bag, but just make sure after you open it and you feed your pet that you roll that bag nice and tight, that you don't leave a lot of air or opportunity for ants and things like that to get in the bag. So make sure it's rolled nice and tight or sealed shut. Alternatively, you can put that food into a more airtight container. So you can purchase, other types of containers like cereal jars and things like that are going to be a little bit more airtight than a bag. And that's a good thing to do too. Make sure you're storing your food in a dry area that doesn't have a lot of moisture. That's not going to be an area where bacteria and mold is going to want to grow. So keep the food nice and sealed in a dry area, and make sure that the area that you're keeping your food in is not too hot. So when you're in an area where that's too hot, sometimes the heat can denature the proteins that are in the food. So you want to make sure that your food is kept nice at room temperature and not too hot. Don't keep it in your car, for example, and then feed it to your pet.
So with the risk of, bacteria or those little particles, are there any FDA guidelines for handling pet food?
Just safety. We want to make sure that you're being safe at all times. So just like you want to wash your hands before you prepare your food, wash your hands before and after you're feeding your pet. Make sure you're storing the food very safely. If you are, in feeding your pet raw food diets, that becomes an issue too. Some people are feeding raw food diets, and that can be controversial, but particularly if you're feeding raw food, you should make sure that you are washing your hands and that you're keeping yourself safe from potential bacterial infection like salmonella, listeria, those types of bacteria that can actually be more prone to developing in pets that are eating raw food diets. Keeping the pet food at a safe room temperature, again, is also really appropriate. Well, I know we've had a quick show today. I'm so glad that you got to see both Ryder and Jaden today. So you've got 2 animals that you can keep on your brain that are going to need homes here in the near future. Come on down to our adoption center and take a look at all the pets that we have available for adoption. Now, this weekend, we really want to see you either here at the adoption center or at Neiman Marcus in the Galleria. We are doing pet adoptions at Neiman Marcus in the Galleria every Friday, Saturday, Sunday between now and December 23rd. So please bring your family down, friends down, say hello to us, ask questions, look at some of the beautiful puppies and kittens we're going to have available for adoption in the window. Every pet adoption that we do, Neiman Marcus will donate $5 back to the Houston SPCA to support our cause of helping injured and sick and abused animals in our community. So adopting a dog, not only are you doing a wonderful thing for the dog, for the cat, for the puppy or the kitten, you are doing yourself a benefit because we know what joy pets bring to our lives. And you're also helping the Houston SPCA continue our mission and helping the animals in our community. So it's a win for everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you every Friday. Hope your holidays are going well, and we will see you next week.